Just checking on LinkedIn if we are live. Hello, everybody. And we are live. It's okay. Industrial Nation, happy to see you. Happy to have you on LinkedIn for this LinkedIn live. As you can see today, it's an English version of Industrial Group, and I have the pleasure to have today Pete Nicholls from HubDo joining us. How are you, Pete?
I'm really well, thanks, Karim, and great to see you. And thank you for making this an English session because my English is better than my French.
I will try to do my best. My English is not perfect, but I will try. But you are the guest, so you will be speaking more than me. Maybe we can start. Pete, can you introduce yourself and introduce HubDo to the audience?
Yeah, sure, I'd love to. So, my name's Pete Nicholls. I'm the head of a company called HubDo. HubDo specializes in making HubSpot do the things that it doesn't do out of the box, and we love doing that specifically for manufacturers and helping good folks like yourself, Karim, where your customers want the software to do certain things, they don't want yet another tool. And yeah, I'm talking to you from the UK, which is where I'm based. So we specifically help Europe, but a lot of customers in North America and Asia Pacific too.
You have been working with HubSpot from a long time. I remember meeting you the first time in a training with Dan Tyre in Dublin. I think it was the first time we met together.
It was, yes. We were in Dublin together at HubSpot headquarters. That's a few years ago. My experience with HubSpot dates back to 2015 because right back then we were looking at which CRM systems we thought were going to be the winners for the future and what to invest time and training into. And I'm really pleased we chose HubSpot because there were some other players at that time that are now long gone, and HubSpot's emerged as the one to be with.
So you specialize in the development, in the production of tools and add-ons that can improve the HubSpot CRM. What do we need to improve HubSpot CRM? I thought it was the best CRM on the marketplace. What today we need to have a add-on on some plugin like the ones you are developing? What is the main goal of developing such plugin today?
Yeah, it's a really good question because many pieces of software are very specific to a certain task. But HubSpot decided some years ago to create a platform rather than a single application. So as a platform for business, it does a lot of things straight out of the box in the various hubs. And then there's the customization of it. Now, if you're implementing an ERP, generally you have this complex cycle of customization to make that ERP fit your business. But with a platform like HubSpot, you want it to do most of the things straight out of the box. But it's great for everybody to a certain level, but no one business exactly. And that's where HubSpot look to folks like us as the developers within the application ecosystem, where we come with custom code or applications, free or paid for, to plug in so that HubSpot will do exactly what certain businesses want.
I don't know if you meet the same difficulties or challenge, but sometimes when I need to explain to a manufacturing company, especially the ones that are not familiar with the CRM, a lot of maybe small Bs and mid-market Bs on the manufacturing market, it's sometimes the first time they buy a CRM, they were all in the ERP. Doing codes, doing invoices, doing customer relationship in the ERP. And maybe sometimes they see the CRM as a module in the ERP. So we are shifting from an ERP for all to the need of a CRM, the need of an ERP. And today we are talking on adding some other softwares up on the CRM. What can we say to people who could be reluctant to migrate from the CRM in the ERP, which is not we all know the best solution, to a multi-system or to a platform like this? What are the main advantages and why do we recommend to do such a change?
Yeah, it's a big decision, and it's not necessarily an automatic yes that everybody should do this, because if the ERP system is already there, that's not going anywhere. That has a really important role at running the resources of the business. It's an enterprise resource planning tool. And yes, they'll have some CRM features, and it probably is there as some sort of an add-on. But if you think about a CRM, it's customer relationship management at its core. So to an ERP, the customer is a bit of an add-on.
Yeah.
In a CRM, the customer is right in the middle. And therefore, those parts of the business that are dealing with the customer, who also have the customer at the center of their thinking, sales reps, lead generation, these folks, they want to use a CRM that integrates with their email, their calendar, is really flexible, see what customers are up to, support the conversation, and then have the important information make its way back into the ERP for what the manufacturer actually makes and sells.
So it's kind of a mindset change, not only a tool change. You need to migrate from a product or a production mindset to a customer-centric mindset, and you need to have the right system, the right data to support this new model. And this is very important for manufacturing company. We can't be always selling good technology. We need to focus on the customer. They know how to do it, but often they don't have the system to support this customer-centric mindset.
Yes, and that leads to friction. So as we were coming up with the title of this section, how do you remove friction? Because generally the salespeople, to be frank, they often hate using the ERP day to day. It adds friction to their daily routine to try and manage what they're doing. So if you're bringing in a CRM system to remove friction, then it should be a much smoother process to get from lead to quote and from quote to cash. And so that's what we thought with this topic today. Let's bring up some examples of why people have front-ended the ERP, and where was the friction, and how did they take that out?
Talking about lead to quote, this is the title of our live today. What do we call lead to quote? It's an expression we often hear when we try to build a system for salespeople and for manufacturing teams. That means we want to have all the process flowing very easily from the first lead to the quote, and maybe to the invoice. I often heard also lead to cash. Some of the companies want to have also the linking with the accounting system, with the cash flow. How do you define this notion of lead to quote?
I think this is just a really nice slice of the flow of the business, because the role of marketing is to find leads, who's out there that potentially needs what the company makes and sells and does, the problems that it solves. So once you find someone who potentially has that problem, then that's treated as a lead. A lead might be an individual person, or maybe it's a whole company. But then you're into the sales process, where you're developing these leads into opportunities, finding out what you want to solve for that customer. Are they a good fit? And then through to the point of, yes, they are a good fit. So how do you generate a quote that is accurate, fast, in the hands of the customer, tells them exactly what they need so they can go and get their approvals to sign off that quote? So everything involved from that lead to quote, it's typically full of friction, but the tools should make that easier.
So what are the typical friction we can see in this process? We know manufacturing companies have the quote is maybe the most important steps in the process. When you talk to sales people in manufacturing companies, most of the day they are making quote. I'm not sure this is the best way to do it, but when we talk with them, when you ask them what they are doing every day, I heard one of my customers telling me they were doing 200 quotes per person per month. It's huge. It's a huge number of quotes. What are the main challenges we face, our manufacturing companies face when they try to make quotes? I'm not sure I ever seen a system that was completely that they was happy with it. What are the friction we are seeing?
Yes, because every business is different. Like you might look at them as a homogenous group of manufacturers, but each manufacturer is really different. Yes, they're making a product, but the friction appears when you take a general tool such as an unconfigured ERP or say HubSpot as a CRM, and you look at, well, this is not a services company, this is a product company. So there's likely to be some friction in the way that the platform treats products. The next step from the products is rolling them into deals. So how do you handle a deal? Manufacturers generally don't have a simple sales model. They'll sell through multiple channels, direct to customer, through resellers, wholesalers, OEMs, different types of relationships. So not every deal looks the same, and therefore the tools and processes change. And then that deal will turn into one or more quotes. Now, you with the manufacturers often find that if they have larger deals, that their resellers want to bid on that deal. So you have 3 or 4 resellers bidding on the same deal. So how do you handle that? Do you treat that as 4 separate deals? Do you treat it as one deal with 4 resellers? There's pros and cons and friction. But once you can get the quote out, then you want the quick follow-up with that quote to get it signed, get it approved, so that it can be then passed on into invoicing and ordering. So there's friction that we can dig into on this episode of examples of what's come up. I think it's really helpful to look at different businesses of what came up and then how they solved it.
I was going to ask ask for it. What kind of friction you see? For example, if we take the product part, that means that we need to have a very well documented, very well structured database of product. Sometimes these companies with a lot of products have external systems. They use a product manager to manage their catalog. What do you see? Have you got some examples of friction you see with this part of the process, and we may dig in the other parts after that?
Yeah, absolutely. The typical areas with products for manufacturers include the bill of materials side of things. The ERP may have product A, which has 20 different components in it that make product A, but the sales rep doesn't necessarily need to deal with the whole bill of materials. They're just selling the product. So you want the product library to represent what the sales reps are actually going to sell. And so that brings in a couple of items. One is the pricing of that. Manufacturers, unless they're selling to a small market, they're quite often selling in multiple currencies. So, for example, HubSpot doesn't automatically update currency rates daily. So a bit over a year ago, we wrote a simple free plugin. You just put it into HubSpot, doesn't cost anything, but it just automatically updates all of the currencies that are active in that portal. Yeah. And the reason that's important for manufacturers, of course, you want to know what your pipeline looks like in your company currency, no matter what the currency is of the deal. Yeah. And then there's a multiple price list. So I mentioned earlier about manufacturers may sell direct to customer, but they probably have wholesalers and resellers and special agreements with large customers. So every time the sales rep is adding or raising a deal, in a default setup of the CRM, the sales rep has to go and manually look up what price does this customer get on XYZ.
And you can see a lot of error at these steps, and it can create friction for the customer, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. That shows up as a few things. It means that there's more time the sales rep has to spend going and looking up the pricing. If they're a new sales rep, it can make them really hesitant to send the quote out because they want somebody else to sanity check what they got wrong. And then if it goes out and it is wrong, then the customer is upset because they're saying, hey, you didn't use our agreed pricing. What's going on? We need a credit note. So the friction becomes a waterfall. So that's one where, say, as an example, there's a manufacturer in the UK that we were talking to 18 months ago to help the reseller there. That's 15 separate price lists with a whole matrix of discount structures. So we built a tool that turned into an app. That app is called DoPricer, and you can just plug it into HubSpot. its job is to allow the product library to have multiple price lists in all different currencies. And then you just need to tell the system for each company that you're selling to, which price list do they buy from and what discounts do they get. And then the sales rep doesn't have to manually change those. So that saves hours and a lot of mistakes. But that's just one plugin that sits inside HubSpot to automate that and remove the friction.
The goal here is to automate and make it very smooth for the sales rep to select a product. You don't have to mind the list of materials. You don't have to mind the currency. And the goal is just select a product. But this is what they want to do. They don't want to have to dig in the system, in the ERP, change the system between ERP and CRM and see what is the pricing. Great. Yeah. We just talked about products. What do you see as friction, typical friction maybe at the deal phase when you start to manage the deal in the pipeline? You mentioned that we can have, for example, a multi reseller working on the same customer at the same time. What are typically the typical friction you're seeing?
When you get into the deal, then that is about to become a quote. So the systems like HubSpot allow line items to be added to the deal. So if there are agreed discounts that are standing discounts that customer should normally get, such as 10% off software and 20% off hardware, whatever's been pre-agreed, the ability to set that on the company and then just allow the sales rep to enter the line items and have it automatically discount those, not just the right price list, but the discounts too. That's where we've seen, for example, there's a rubber recycling manufacturer that uses the same do pricer tool. There's a few thousand line items that the sales reps are adding per month, and they don't have to look up what discounts each customer should get on the deals. That saves a lot of friction. The next part is related to the amount of what should the deal be. Should it be total contract value? If it's a recurring order, should it be annual contract value? A handy way to automate that is using a HubSpot workflow where you tell HubSpot which value you want to pick from the deal to use as the deal amount. HubSpot allows you to choose one, but sometimes for different deal pipelines, you want to see different values and different rules. So HubSpot is an automated workflow engine, and that's really handy for automatically setting that. A third area in deals where there's friction is when you want to copy a deal, to duplicate a deal that's pretty much the same as a previous one. Instead of making the sales rep do that manually, then adding in a tool such as a cloner tool that will clone an existing deal and just save all that manual work. Those are three big ones that come up really regularly, and what a lot of our apps are used for is the pricing. It can then go next level when you're looking into, well, what about quantity breaks or different units of measure, customizing around how each manufacturer prices those things.
What I found very interesting is that for some system, if you need to do what you just described, you need to develop, you need to have a developer digging in the code and trying to develop and selling, and an integrator selling you days to develop this. It's a great business for for integrators. But what I found very interesting with HubSpot that you have this ecosystem, you have this open ecosystem, and you have typically application like the ones you are developing in the marketplace. You can just add this with a few clicks. But one question I have is that what you just described need maybe someone to keep the house clean. What have you seen in manufacturing companies? What job it is? Do we need a specific person to manage all these rules, or this price list, or this relationship with distributors, for example? Sometimes it's a title, it's a person you don't have in manufacturing company. But what are your recommendations about how you keep your lead to code clean with someone responsible for all the operation?
Yeah, great question. I think today the closest job title to this responsibility of keeping everything in order is sales operations.
Yeah.
We're also seeing RevOps coming in as another kind of phraseology that has a broader
Very hype
responsibility.
terms, very hype
It
terms
is.
in the ecosystem. But in fact, we really need someone to make this job, specifically when the quotes are complex and the products and the solutions that we are selling are complex.
Yes. Well, I think a really good rule of thumb is try and reduce complexity, because you wanting to reduce friction. And I see a strong resistance from manufacturers that they don't want to use yet another tool. They don't want to have to build a tech stack. If you have an ERP and a CRM system, you don't want to add an ad and make it somebody's full-time job. So all the things that I've been talking about here are effectively plugins that go into HubSpot, not a separate tool that somebody uses. You just keep people in HubSpot. And then the person who's responsible for that, ideally the existing sales op person, if they're used to using spreadsheets to manage the price lists, you
Yeah.
make it as familiar as possible on that. So I'd say sales operations today, Karim, but what do you say for manufacturers?
I would say that most of the time you have, in French, we call them ADV, assistant to the sales. Sometimes those persons are responsible for, a lot of manufacturing companies, they are responsible for the sales operation. They don't call it sales operation or RevOps, but in fact they are doing it every day on a day-to-day basis, trying to figure out with a Excel spreadsheet and this kind of tools. But I think you are right. We don't need to have maybe somebody full time on this, but you need to have someone responsible, accountable for for the cleaning of the house, for the housekeeping,
Yeah,
as you said.
I'd say this touches on an area which is a bit of a bugbear for me, in that I see tools that are designed for salespeople where it works well for the sales rep, but for the sales operations person that we're talking about now, it can make their life even harder, because they've gone from a spreadsheet, which was relatively painless for them to see and keep management of. Um, I see that the software developers often lean into rules-based solutions, where someone has to go into the back end and set up a rule that if it's customer A, they get this discounted, but if it's B, and if it's on a Tuesday and it's after 5 p.m., all of these rules. And rules-based engines are very difficult to manage, because you can't see at a glance what's
Yeah,
going on. You have to dig into the rules. So we've tried to steer to the more sales ops friendly approach, where we were talking about the price lists and discounts earlier. Uh, all of that should be just stored on the product library in HubSpot, so it can be exported to Excel and re-imported again. Don't do rules that you can't export.
yeah.
Make it familiar to the sales ops person who loves Excel.
This could be the highlight of the episode. Don't be rules, so that you can export. I will take it as a baseline. Um, can we talk about payment? I know maybe in some countries paying online is very easy. I know in the US companies are using their credit cards to pay materials online. In countries like France, I feel like it's still they are still reluctant to pay online for B2B buying. What are the friction? What kind of friction do you see in the payment phase?
The payment often is on a quote or an invoice. I think we're seeing a move from payment purely on invoice to now having payment links on quotes. So look at an example, say Nortec as a company in the UK, where they're now beginning to send out payment links for certain types of orders, and finding that that's working really well, but it's orders below a certain value. So
Mm,
orders that are a bit more e-commerce like, that are maybe £800, £1,200, where it's fine, it sits at a low level of approval within the customer, that they can just click and spend that budget. But if it's a $10,000, $20,000 order, that's not going to be an e-commerce
They talk with
order. It's pay on
yeah, they
invoice.
do a wire
So,
transfer.
so I think there's actually a cutoff point. I think like what Nortec have done will be typical for manufacturers to say deals below a certain value, let's just take the friction out and use a link and see if customers use it. Above a certain value, let's use our bank transfer and other existing methods through the ERP.
You can still give the choice if the customers have the choice, he can pay in a transfer on link. But I see that very interesting because some of manufacturing companies try to build a e-commerce website. What I see, most of them are not using the customer are not using the basket like, to add articles and pay online like you will buy something on Amazon or this kind of things. So I think the link in a quote maybe is a more easy way to have a first step to a full digitalized sales process, maybe for small contracts. But I see that as a first step. But I feel like a lot of manufacturing companies are still hesitate to take this step. But we try to convince them.
Well, I think there's a great opportunity here to easily experiment. Sometimes manufacturers are accused of being slow to adapt, but it's hard as a manufacturer where you've got these big assembly lines and processes. You can't spin your business on a dime. But what you can do is experiment a little bit at the front end. So if you're already sending out quotes and below a certain value, you can send down a link and just see if the customers use it. Then you can be customer driven and allow that freedom without having to build an e-commerce front end, which would require a lot more complexity of quote validation.
Budget, very complex to
Yeah,
develop.
I think just send a link. Yeah.
What's coming next? We just talked about it. How do you see them as a future of quoting in a CRM? What evolution are you seeing in this process? Maybe on the tools or on the way to manage this?
Well, I think the nice part is that for those who have adopted these tools, realize that it solves a whole chunk of problems that previously were friction. So now what's coming is picking off pockets of friction that have evolved from people starting to use the tools. So for example, if you find that customers really like using a payment link, what's coming in HubSpot's case is the ability to store the payment details in there so that the customer can agree to be auto-billed. Now, in Europe, that's a little complex because you have to support 3D secure, that the customer has shown their face to their mobile or whatever it is to validate that the card is okay to be held on file. But that's coming shortly, so you can auto-bill customers for repeats or staged invoices, automated taxes, better visibility for accounts receivable because you're now receiving payments through a new channel, automatic invoicing. Those are tools that HubSpot's coming up with. The area that I'm really excited about, though, is also the ability to fully customize the inside of the user interface. So for businesses that want their sales reps to be led through a sales process to create a valid order, that customization, it's there today. We can do it for a single customer, but we're looking to be able to do that across manufacturers who have similar needs, and that helps get the cost down for everybody.
You didn't mention the AI. It's the most discussed term today. Do you see some improvement? I'm sure we will have some improvement from AI. What do you see at some of the very easy improvement to come with AI in this lead to quote process?
Well, that's a really interesting point. Where does AI fit? Because it's a generic type of solution coming into many different types of problems. So if we just limit ourselves to think lead to quote, where does it fit in there at the moment? Right now, it's mainly helping sales rep time, because when they go to reply to the customer, you have AI tools that help write a decent email for those who maybe struggle to articulate. AI can rewrite the email and make it easy to communicate with customers. Using AI to produce valid quotes, quote validation. I think that's a future step because you need a lot of data. And the problem with AI at the moment is quite often AI is just plain wrong. So reformatting an email is great, but coming up with a quote to build something that like has 6 fingers on a hand, like AI tends to draw hands these days, you don't want a 6-fingered hand on a manufacturing quote. So AI, I think, fits at the earlier stage, and we'll see it get better as it moves down towards the quoting end.
What can be interesting for manufacturing companies without talking about AI, if you try to digitalize your little code process from now, you will have the data that will be useful for developing AI model for your company. Last week we had a very interesting talk with a company called Fabera, who are developing AI solution to very specific quotes, not product based, but in very specific industries that need to every time you need to have someone who have the knowledge to build the code, because he is able to know how much cost the time you are using the machine, how much raw materials you need, these kind of things. And they are building an AI from all the codes and the coding that have been made through the years by the company, using it, working on it, and using it as a data set for training an AI, and be able to maybe to do 70% of the work. But I'm sure that we'll see improvement. But the more important improvement for me is that you try, when you automatize a lot of things, you use a plugin or add-ons like the ones you are developing. You try to reduce friction for the customers. And we know today the competition between manufacturing companies can't be only on the product. You need to be the first to answer the inbound demand from the customer. You need to answer very precisely with a very smooth process. If you take 2 more days to make a quote versus your competitor, you will lose the deal. I think most of the time is the most important thing. You reduce friction for your customers, and you build a very smooth process. Peter, have you got a final word for manufacturer? Listen to us.
My final word would just be open to small experiments. Not everything has to be a reconfiguration of the ERP or a big, complex. Just adopt some of the things that are easy to test. We've been talking about HubSpot. That's a very easy thing to test. For example, the payment links. Just being open to that. I'd say, unfortunately, many of the manufacturers we work with are open to that, but they're just not sure what step to take. So I'd say for the customers that are listening to this, is to talk to you, Karim, say, here's our current process. Here's where we think our friction is. There's some really simple things that we could do, but low cost, short timeline, and move fast and iterate to learn from what customers do. Just be open.
More faster. This is the word of the end.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Pete. It was a great episode, and I think you bring a lot of value. There are people that are listening to us. You can follow us on YouTube. You can find the podcast on the most podcast platform like Spotify and those. Pete, thank you very much. See you soon, and see you next week for another episode. Bye-bye.
My pleasure. Thanks, Karim. Bye-bye.